We are live. We can start.
Good evening to all of you. Welcome to this very special webinar that we are organizing for the students of IEEE Pune section. And we have opened it up for all the students across India because it's a very important topic that many students are always keen to know about uh, in the context of pursuing higher education, especially doing their master's and PhD in the US. So here is a quick view of the session agenda that we have. We will have Professor Gandhi talk to us about a topic on from potential to promise, developing scholars one Eureka moment at a time. Then we will have three youngsters who were in the same space that you are all in currently. They have all been graduates of engineering from India, then gone into higher studies in the US, Priyanka, Jitendra, and Sumedh. And then we will conclude with responding to many of your queries. And I will be joined by the IEEE Pune student section representative, Nupur Kulkarni, who will join me in asking the questions to the panelists. So let us start off with the session one of today's event. We have Professor Rajiv Gandhi talk us through his experiences, the way he is mentoring students, and various of the guidance that he has been able to provide to the students. Let me do a quick introduction of Professor Rajiv Gandhi. He is a junior from my institute, VJTI, computer science professor at Rutgers University, Camden. Also teaches part-time at the University of Pennsylvania. Rajiv received his PhD in computer science in 2003 from the University of Maryland, College Park. His research interests lie in the broad area of theoretical computer science. A very passionate educator who loves working with students with diverse background, helping them achieve their potential. He has been the recipient of several teaching excellence awards. So I have known Rajiv for the last few years and been very privileged to know about his work, and I'm sure he will enlighten us with his experiences. So Rajiv, over to you.
Very much, Dina, for the kind introduction. So folks, I mean, the way I'm going to give this talk is just share with you stories of success stories of many of my students, and that will give an idea to people as to what are some of the things that help people do well in their graduate education. So to give you some background about myself, I have done my bachelor's from VJTI. I then went to pursue my master's at I did my master's at Virginia Tech. And after I finished my master's degree, I joined Qualcomm. Now, when I went to the US, I didn't have any intention of doing a PhD. I wanted to do a master's just like most people do, and then get a job. I got a great job at Qualcomm, but after 2 years decided that I wanted to do a PhD. And I finished my PhD at the University of Maryland, College Park in 2003, after which I've been a faculty at Rutgers, Camden. And Rutgers Camden is mainly a 4-year college. Rutgers New Brunswick, which is the main campus of Rutgers, has a PhD program. Rutgers Camden doesn't have a PhD program. Our students mainly come from South Jersey, and a large fraction of them hold jobs. Many of them don't come from the same privileged background that some of their peers from other institutes come from. And for the first many years since the inception of the CS department, hardly any student had gone to graduate school. Yeah, to give you an idea of the background of some of my students, let me share with you a personal statement that one of my students had written when they applied for summer jobs, summer internships in particular. Yeah, so in high school, I did not care for education and felt it didn't care for me. Senior year in high school, I did not know what was going to happen. I had only applied to one college, Rutgers Camden, the school closest to my home, and had plans on joining the armed forces like three of my siblings if I was not accepted. I only applied because in our country, college is what everyone does after high school, since almost any job now requires college education. I got admitted to Rutgers Camden, but I had no idea what I was doing there and barely coasted through courses. I felt like I had no future. Yeah, and so, as you can gauge, this is more or less the background of many of the students that I come across at Rutgers Camden. And, I've been quite fortunate to be able to work with such students and work with them to help them succeed. And I'll share with you some of the stories. So, the students at Camden, when I first joined in 2003, I felt they didn't have confidence in themselves. If I would tell them, look, they can do just as good as their peers at other schools, they would not even believe that. When I talked to the faculty had given up hopes on the students and they didn't have confidence, so they would shut their doors and do their work. But right from the beginning, I saw that there were some bright students in my class, and initially I had no idea what I could do with them. So I would just tell them, hey, you know what, you may want to go to another institute where you may get maybe a better education and so on. Until in 2007, I meet Brad Greening. He was a student in my math foundations course. And I told him the same thing. Brad, why don't you go to another campus? You're a very bright guy. And he said, look, that's not an option for me. Number one, I cannot afford. Number two, I don't think my parents would even allow me because they just want me to graduate and quickly get a job. And help support the family. I tried to inspire him to do research in summer 2007, but that was a failure. He had promised me that we would meet and so on, but he didn't show up to the meetings. He stopped replying to my emails. Come fall semester, I see Brad in the first week. He sees me. He goes in the other direction. I chase him down and I say, hey, let's talk. In my office, I told him, look, I'm required to send a report to the dean. And he said, what do you want me to do? And I said, look, there is a book, Proofs That Really Count, that I would like you to read and present to me from that book every week. He presented to me every week, and at the end of that semester he had done such a great job. I told him that he should compile all the things he has taught me and give a presentation in the department colloquium. Like, until then, no undergraduate student had ever presented in the department colloquium, and that is more or less true of any school, or at most schools in the country. And after he did his presentation, I got an email from one of my colleagues. I had him in my class a few years ago, and based on that, I would have never guessed that he'd be capable of the seminar talk he gave a few weeks back. You've obviously been very good for him. Now, around that time, that in January 2008, we were getting lots of announcements for summer internships, research internships, and so on. And I told Brad, look, I would love to support your application for this, but the only condition is that you need to quit your job, because his academics were suffering because of that. And after a lot of back and forth, I talked to him. He came from a very, very challenging background. And he said, look, I don't have money. I stay with my parents. I have to contribute towards the rent and so on. And we saw that about $500 or $600 a month was sufficing to, cover his expenses. And still he told me that, look, it is going to be very difficult for him to quit his job. And he told me, when I talk to you, Rajiv, it seems very convincing that I should do what you tell me. But when I go out and meet my friends and family, they say that I would be making a mistake. So he wrote to me an email just past midnight, I think in 2008. Dina, can you go to the next slide? Yeah, thank you. And you see that the subject is decision. This was a very important decision for him. It's written past midnight in 2008. He says, dear Rajiv, I would like to try to go for it. You can again sense the tentativeness in the tone of his email. As per our discussion, I figure even if things do not work out with the work we will have done, plus the plan to do the data structures work, I will be well able to get another very possibly better job should the worst case happen. Again, there was a negative mindset. He didn't have that confidence that good things will happen. By my figures, a lower bound of $550 per month would allow me to pay my parents their money, which is contributing towards the rent, plus my car insurance and so on. So, it's even after being at Camden for so many years, I didn't realize the challenges that our students faced. And I asked Brad at the end as to what made him decide that quit his job. And he said, look, I was actually going to write to an email that I was not going to quit my job, but I was so confused that I actually quit my job. So anyway, great things happened. Brad eventually, so Brad worked with Professor Nina Pfefferman at Rutgers in computational epidemiology, and eventually did his PhD there. 2008, 2009 were very key years. I got support from the National Science Foundation for my work that I was doing with students, which was huge because that way I can support my students. I increased the workload. What I was seeing is that the courses I found that were taught at Rutgers were not as challenging. So I made my course very challenging because, well, if the other courses are not challenging enough, then my students have time to do my work. So I made them work very hard. Students like Tom and James postponed their graduation. I want to come to this point towards the end again. Tom came to my office and said, Professor, I wanted to thank you for everything you have done for me. And I told him, look, you don't know much to get a job. I suggest that you delay your graduation. Don't graduate next semester and just will do some good things and then you go and apply for a job. He listened to me. He did everything I told him. And James Davis was not even a student in my class. There was a student, Kelly, in my class. Kelly would, my classes are interactive. I would ask Kelly questions. Sometimes she would give me the right answers, sometimes not so correct answers, which was fine. But her homeworks were perfect. So I asked Kelly, hey, what's going on? And Kelly said, oh, I have this friend, James Davis, who helps me with my homeworks. I said, oh, if he's helping you so much in your homeworks, why don't you have him take the class? To my complete surprise, James Davis walks in the class. And he was a senior in college at that time. I called James to my office and I said, what's your plan? He said, oh, I'm going to work at the grocery store in the prepared foods department. That's what I've been doing after high school. And that's what I'll continue doing. And I said, can you wait and can we do some research together? And we did some research together and so on. And another thing that I want to highlight is that what I was at that point convinced that my students are very good. But when I could not convince my colleagues that our students are so good, how am I going to convince the outside world that the students are so good? So the only way I realized that I will be able to convince the world if they do some good research. So I introduced courses where the students are allowed to, are enabled to do, read papers and present papers and so on. And now what happened is that several students applied for summer internships and most of them got the summer internships. And very soon I started emails such as the follows. Yeah. So I get emails such as Josh was fabulous. We got an oral and poster and oral presentation into the workshops for algorithms in bioinformatics workshop based on his work and are now working on a journal paper. I've tried to get him to apply to Maryland for grad school, but he's got some family issues that will keep him out of school for a few years. I'll try to keep in touch with him and hopefully lure him here. Yeah, and Tom gets the email. I have enjoyed working with you on this project. Kathy mentioned you're submitting applications to graduate school. I hope you will consider apply to the University of Wisconsin. We are a well-funded program. Please let me know if you have any questions about our program and if you are interested in visiting. Yeah. Tom also gets emails from Virginia Tech. He said, you may recall that we met during your summer research project at Virginia Tech. I've heard you're applying. I wanted you to encourage you to apply. Yeah, and James Davis was going to work at a grocery store in the prepared foods department. He continued working with me. We worked on theoretical computer science topics. He gave some very good presentations, and my colleagues at other universities wrote to me, thanks, Rajiv. It was good to see both you and your maturing student, James. It's really nice. These guys can understand such key research papers. 4 more students now get admitted to top graduate programs: Cornell, Dartmouth, Princeton, and Virginia Tech. So just note that for the first 15 years of the department, nobody had gone to grad school. Now Brad went to Rutgers, New Brunswick, and 4 others got into these top schools. And now the culture at the university was changing. More students wanted to pursue academics. I would get emails such as, Professor, I quit my job and ready for any challenge you have to offer. So I didn't have to do any convincing that, hey, you should focus on academics and such that. So just to give you a summary of the trajectory snapshot, James Davis's high school GPA was so low that Rutgers Camden did not admit him. And we don't have too high standards to admit students. And James planned to work at ShopRite, his employer after high school, quits his job in 2009 at ShopRite, which is the grocery chain. Starts his graduate studies at Cornell in 2010, recipient of the prestigious NSF Graduate Research Fellowship, which is a $100,000 award to promising starting graduate students. Finishes his PhD in 2015 because his first job was an assistant professor at the University of Illinois. Brad Greening finished his PhD in 2014, is now a research scientist at the Center for Disease Control. Robert McDavid is the student whose personal statement you saw right at the beginning. He is finishing his PhD at Princeton currently. Yeah. So, you know, there is research done, and Hambrush and others have found that 50% of the US PhD students come from the top 50 institutes in the US, and the remaining 50 come from the rest 700 plus institutes in the US. Rutgers Camden clearly belongs to the other to the larger partition, but we have done quite well, as you can see in the next slide. Uh, uh, a lot of our students have gone to some of the top graduate programs in the country, and two have won the prestigious NSF Graduate Fellowship. One was the winner of the most outstanding undergraduate researcher award, and two have won honorable mentions. Let me quickly share the work that we have been doing with Mumbai University students for the past over 10 to 11 years. I was a Fulbright fellow visiting VJTI from January to June 2011. When I applied for a Fulbright scholarship, I had made it very clear that I didn't want to teach at, let's say, elite places like IIT and such. Nothing against that. It's just that those students had the opportunities. I wanted to make sure that opportunities were presented to others. I had a great experience. Very few students would directly go from undergraduate at VJTI to PhD programs. Manish Purohit was among the was one of the students I worked with. He got into University of Maryland directly into the PhD program in 2011. Several others are now into PhD program. More than 25 students are now doing PhD from after I started teaching at VJTI. 3 have now even become faculty from my very first group of 2011 that I taught: Amay Bhangale at UC Riverside, Karthik Nayak at Duke, Cable Vora at Simon Fraser, and many others are doing academic research in industry or as postdocs and so on. Yeah, and just to give you an idea, these are some of the very recent emails that I'm getting of my students from Mumbai University and other places in India who are currently in PhD programs. So this is for a student whom I worked with about 4 years ago when I was visiting Mumbai. I mentored this student, brought the student here to the US, to Rutgers Camden, worked with them, and now they are at an Ivy League university doing very well. This is one of the feedback that they got. You are in good standing, which is the top level. Your advisor and other faculty have noted that you are doing great work, and they're excited by the research you are doing. You are a superstar when it comes to research productivity. Your technical understanding and ability to implement models from scratch is truly remarkable. You're extremely ambitious, and you should continue to be that way. I want to make a note that the student was not doing that well when I met them, where I believe in 2016, 2017. This is another note that I received from a faculty at a top university. This is again regarding my student Sheel, who had gone to that place. This is a quick note of thanks sent with Sheel's permission for introducing us and encouraging me to find a way to let him take my majors only course this fall. Being a large institution with unmeetable demand, we rarely allow such exception, but I took a chance for Sheel. She ended up with the highest grade in the course, basically tied with 2 other students in the class of 75 students. He received 100% on the final exam, which no other student did. And of course, he was a delight to have participated. So let me give you some background about Sheel. Sheel was in grade 8 or 9 when I met him. He was not doing that well in academics in high school. I was one of the people whom I talked to his parents, and one of the suggestions I said, you may want to take Sheel out of school. Its school is not challenging enough for him, and that is one of the issues. Sheel's parents took the decision of taking him out of school. Since then, he has been he has been studying on his own. He remotely from India, when he was in high school, used to take classes remotely. I used to arrange for him in the US, get all his work graded, be compared with the students in the US, and is now doing very well. Sheel is going to start a PhD, his PhD this fall at one of the top 5 universities in the country. Next slide, please. This is an email that I got recently in the past few months from a student that I worked with in India about 3 years ago. When I met this student was doing quite poorly. In fact, had failed courses at a college in Mumbai. In fact, he had failed operating systems. He was not doing that well. And when his parents asked me, I told them the same thing: take him out of college. He needs to strengthen his basics. The parents within a week decided they are going to take him out of college. This student worked with me, starting from the basic courses, studied for 6 months in India, had no admission anywhere. Eventually got admission at Rutgers Camden, came there, finished his last 2 years here. After that, took another year to focus on research and is now going to a top university, starting his PhD in fall. This is the email that I got from him. Professor, bottom line is very simple. I want to get into one of these top institutions where the atmosphere allows me to strive for more. I wouldn't mind getting some more research under my wing and applying for a great PhD program. I'm into work, really, and I don't expect any of the top universities to be easy to get into. I want to put in the work. Yes, will give my best each day. Thank you again. I can't explain how different things were just a year ago. It's insane. So this was a total transformation from somebody who had difficulty passing the courses to now going to a PhD program. I also get emails such as this from faculty at Ivy League universities saying that one of the things that is very unusual about the students that you propel forward is the research maturity. The thing about Krishna is that he actually understands what research is. I think he's been a super fit in our group. Right. So again, I want to emphasize on research. Yeah. So, finally, I want to summarize. People always ask me what are the takeaways, and I've tried to identify some. First thing is, have the confidence that you can do it. And I think from my experience, what I've seen that the people who are able to do well, they first of all have a clarity. Look, I work with students at even some of the Ivy League universities, and it is not necessarily that they may be bright, but many times their mind is cluttered. And I think having clarity really helps one achieve their goals. Giving time, like if you see people like Tom, James, the student I spoke with used to fail courses. They gave time. They took a year off, strengthened their foundations, and then went further. And finally, if you have a good mentor or get some guidance, that would help. Now, one thing people ask me, look, I'm very confused. Should I do, computational biology, aerospace, mechanical engineering, robotics? Look, if you're not sure, that's still okay. But there are some foundational courses that are universally applicable. And I've listed some of the courses. My students all work in different areas, but they all are required to do this. So a few topics that I'm listing are discrete mathematics. It helps develop a way to think. Clearly programming, no matter what field you do, you need to learn how to program. There is no choice there in this time and age. Data structures and algorithms, algorithm design, linear algebra, and probability. You can't do in this time and age machine learning. You need to know linear algebra and probability. Another thing that I want to say, which people don't realize, is the depth versus breadth approach. See, if you're at a college, right, generally people do first year courses, second year courses, third year courses, fourth year courses. By the time you get to the cutting edge of research, you are in your fourth year. In my opinion, that's a tad too late. Try to go deeper into some subject. Start research by the end of your second year, if possible, but no later than the end of your third year. I hope you saw from all the stories that I shared, research was the key component. Right? That is, if you want to go for a PhD, but but if you want to go for a master's, it may not be that essential, but still, if you do research, it cannot hurt you. And then finally, people ask me about funding and so on. So I've just included that PhD admission always comes with full financial support. You don't need to worry about, you get a tuition waiver and they pay you a pretty healthy stipend to live sufficiently. I'm sure Sumedh and others will talk about that a bit. And most admissions to master's program do not come with financial support. However, at big state schools, people may be able to get support if a TA position or something opens up. With that, I'll end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rajiv. Very insightful, and your experiences really talk volumes. And I'm sure there will be many questions that will come from the students. There are already a few questions which had already come up, but we will wait for the subsequent session. Before we move into the session 2, where we will have Sumedh and team share their experiences and their journeys, I just wanted to give a quick view of IEEE Pune section and the work that we are doing. One of the things which we took up as a section was to look at contributing back to the community and the Pune region as such, and how we can actually identify themes on which we will work as a unit, as a professional setup, as a academic setup, and drive some of those initiatives. So we have 4 key initiatives. One is around affordable agriculture and how we can actually help the lives of the farmers. Then we have a special interest group on healthcare and engineering and medical combination. The third initiative we have is around the STEM to STEAM initiative, which is bringing in liberal arts and into the core STEM curriculum. Also, we have been the technical partner at a Pune level initiatives for Pune Knowledge Cluster, which is one of the initiatives funded by the principal scientific advisor to the Government of India. And at the same time, we have quite a lot of the society chapters which are very active in the Pune section. Also, there are quite a few affinity groups which you can be a part of. Just a quick highlights of the section. Again, it is one of the youngest sections of in India. We have been recognized for various of the initiatives that we have been driven. Our flagship annual conference, Pune Con, which generally happens in the month of December, has been able to attract a lot of papers and a good amount of participation across the globe. And we have been very actively involved with smart city related initiatives in the city of Pune. We'll soon be launching a sustainability focused sustainathon along with TCS, and we will have the opportunity to engage a lot of you students, and specifically the 25 odd student branches that we have across various colleges in Pune. So that was just a quick highlight of the Pune section before we get into the session 2. And here we have experience sharing by some of the recent students. Let me just do a quick introduction for these young folks. First is Priyanka. Priyanka is a bachelor in computer science right from Pune here, from Cummins College of Engineering. And she's done her master's in business intelligence and data analytics at Carnegie Mellon University. Worked as a technical analyst at Schneider Electric in Bangalore before she went to do her MS. And after completing her MS, I'm very proud that she's part of my team as a data scientist in the Paceport labs that we have, where we work along with Cornell Tech. Then we have Jitendra Gam. He's an active participant in coding competitions at in Computer Society of India and IEEE events. Took a lot of online courses outside of the classroom and set up a foundation for his job as well as his master's. Worked for a year or so in the construction technology startup, building up their software engineering team. Currently, he is working in Equinix as a software engineer after graduating with a MS in computer science from sunny Buffalo. And our third speaker is Sumed Sontake, a graduate from College of Engineering, Pune, India. He also held undergraduate research fellow position at Caltech and University of Oxford in bioinformatics and computational neuroscience. Currently a second year computer science PhD student at the University of Southern California, advised by Professor Laurent Iti. So with that, let me start off with Priyanka. Priyanka, over to you to share your experiences.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dina. Okay, hi. Hi, everyone. Good evening to all of you. Hope you're doing well and staying safe out there. So as Dina mentioned, I did my bachelor's in computer engineering from University of Pune. I graduated in 2016. And before coming to master's, I took 2 years. I worked for 2 years at Schneider Electric as a technical analyst. Honestly, when I was completing my bachelor's, I wasn't very clear as to what I wanted to do. I mean, I was quite clear that I wanted to pursue some sort of master's degree, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to move to the States or stay back in India and do my master's there. So I took some time, and then I realized that I wouldn't want to, let go of an opportunity to come to US and pursue my master's. So in fact, I actually gave my GRE after I graduated from University of Pune, and I mean, along with my job, I started studying for GRE, did all the application process, and then, luckily got admitted to CMU. And yeah, so the top 3 rationales behind my decision to pursue masters was, first of all, when I was working in Bangalore, I was working more with Oracle as a software developer, with Oracle ERP systems as a SDE. And I always wanted to work as a data scientist or a data analyst. Basically, try to work in the analytics space. So pursuing my master's was one way to achieve that. And as well as I wanted to experience how working in a different country apart from India would look like, and experience the culture of some other country. And so that these were the reasons why I decided to pursue my master's. Even though I prepared actually for my GRE and TOEFL when I was, when I was still working, I sort of had an idea that I wanted to pursue my master's. So I did work on, couple of research projects with a professor from IIT Bombay, and which sort of I feel like I wanted to do that so it would help me build my profile for applying for anywhere in the country, and would give me an edge over some other applicants. So I did a research project for that. Again, I think just a few pointers for all of you is that I think a lot of students just focus on just your GPA or the marks which you get in GRE. So all of this is just one part of your application. My suggestion would be to look to have a broader mindset and focus on your entire application, which includes your other interests as well as your projects. What are you really passionate about, etc. Another thing is, I think what you can do is before coming to the US, you can really research about the universities which you want to target, requirements. Doing so would help you, so if you know that you are lacking in some particular aspect, you can definitely do some other things which would help you get that university. Again, working on projects in the job profile which you really want to target helps get jobs here in the US. Another thing which I wasn't, very much active on was LinkedIn when pursuing my bachelor's, and the importance of LinkedIn when I moved here. So maintain an active LinkedIn profile, that would help you. And always, just keep an eye on the horizon. If you want to do your master's, try to plan ahead and plan early. One suggestion which I can definitely give is what I did was I planned my GRE and TOEFL in such a way which would give me a lot of time to apply for universities, and I could apply for them early. So I started my application process for various universities in October itself. And what happens here in US is that most of the admits are given on a rolling basis. So if you apply early, you definitely get an edge over those people who will be applying late. So there's a higher chance of you getting into a university which would otherwise be, sort of a little bit ambitious for you. So yeah, I think that's it from my end, and I would really love to take your questions in the Q&A session which we have planned for all of you. And that's it from my end, and all the best for your applications.
Thank you, Priyanka. We'll move over to Jitendra.
Hi everyone. So my name is Jitendra. I did my undergrad from Nagpur University in information technology or computer science. I graduated in 2017, and I realized that my GPA wasn't that good. So, and also like Priyanka, I was also not really sure about pursuing masters. So I decided to wait and take some experience. So I joined a construction technology startup and helped build their software engineering team. So by the time I left, the team had around 20 people. And later I joined a master's in computer science. Actually, I joined master's in data science first. And then from data science, I switched to computer science at SUNY Buffalo. So the reason why I switched is because through the data science courses, I realized that I like building software more than I like analyzing data and doing machine learning and things like that. So that's why I switched. And I also worked as a research assistant at SUNY Buffalo. So RAs, if you want to know how to get an RA, I'd be glad to help. And yeah, so during summer and fall, I also interned at Equinix as a software engineering intern. And after that, I got a return offer from Equinix, and I'm working here since April. Yeah. Next slide. Yeah, so the reason to pursue masters, a lot of my seniors and relatives were doing well, were either pursuing masters or had pursued masters, or some of them were in India, and they kind of encouraged me to do a master's in the US. So those were the primary reasons. I also took a lot of MOOCs, and I used to like the education system, how effective it was in the US, and that's why I decided to. So I basically wanted to experience that kind of education again, and also wanted to be a part of the Silicon Valley ecosystem. So yeah, so these are the three primary reasons. Apart from that, what I'll suggest you to do pre-MS is these are some of the mistakes that I did. So my GPA during undergrad wasn't really that good, so I should try to focus on CGPA. And along with that, I did not do a single internship during my undergrad. So don't do that mistake. Do internships in the summer and winter. Don't waste that time. Along with that, suggestions during MS. Again, CGPA is important. I mean, not really that important, but uh, yes, surely should definitely not be below 3.6 or 3.7. And along with that, I think what is important here is to kind of sell yourself and set yourself apart from other applicants who apply at really top companies. So for that, you need to catch recruiters' attention. You need to have a decent portfolio, a GitHub, so that like as they say, it's always better to show your code than if talk is cheap, show me the code. Is a philosophy that you should kind of abide by. Uh, so always try to have like let's say you create a machine learning model. So instead of just uploading the code on GitHub and putting that link on your resume, if possible, tie that model to like a web app and like like upload the link to the web app on your resume so that recruiters or hiring managers can like see and like use your software. So that is really impactful. So what I used to do was whatever projects I did, I used to either record a video demonstration. Used to put them on YouTube, and so that somebody people have something to see rather than just looking at code. So try and do that. I also started a YouTube channel to kind of catch recruiters' attention. It's currently inactive, but yeah, I'll work on that a bit more. So for software engineering jobs, I think lead code and starting lead code and top coder contests on contests daily, like not daily, but very weekly or bi-weekly. So try and do them. Along with that, one really important resource is PRAMP. So PRAMP is for interview practice. So you can interview some random person, and he can also interview you in like 1 hour. Uh, so PRAMP is really useful. And one important thing to not miss is the application, summer internship application season during September and December. So it's right after you land in the US. So you have to start applying for internships, and the preparation has to start in India. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Jitendra. We'll move over to Sumedh. Sumedh, over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Sumed. I'm now a second year computer science student at USC. So I think I can just go through what I've done so far. So I basically started my undergrad at COEP in 2015. And while I was there, during the first couple of years in college, I sort of kept my eyes and ears open, and I tried my best to assimilate and kind of pick up on what things were happening in college, and try to intern as much as possible. So I spent my summers and winters basically right off like after my first semester like interning at companies, and I spent time in technical clubs, doing robotics, and a lot of other sort of related technical activities. And I kind of found a kind of a pretty big gap between what people were doing in the industry and what was happening in terms of clubs and colleges. And so luckily I kind of I figured out that this probably wasn't for me, and I left a bunch of clubs, and I happened to start working with a few of my seniors who were in the process of graduating, and we had like a tiny sort of a coding club where we were doing interesting work. And I spent the next 3 years of my time at COAP working with them, and that eventually became Skyline Labs, which was a Facebook start funded startup. And I worked as a data scientist there, as chief data scientist there. And so we sort of tackle these, projects on bioinformatics, or basically projects on using data to analyze, fraud detection or things like that, and sort of sell these proofs of concepts to companies and have them, use our work and kind of monetize it in that way. And this kind of led to sort of publications that were useful. And so eventually I kind of went down the path of doing research at academic institutes as well. So in the summer of my second year, I worked at the University of Oxford on using sort of data intensive methods to look at how drugs could be discovered, and kind of looking at how the drug regulation process could be not circumvented necessarily, but you could have an edge when you're coming up with these drug candidates by using the data that was available. And then I moved to Caltech in the summer of my third year to work on using sort of computational models to try and learn substrates for psychological disorders. So what that means is, if could I sort of scan your brain using MRI imaging, and try to figure out using that scan whether you were likely to have depression, or what was your personality, or things like that. So how sort of biology manifests itself in real life. And then luckily, the group that I worked with at Caltech, I was lucky enough to work in the computational neuroscience group, and it so happened that my advisor at USC was a PhD student at Caltech, and so then I moved into USC into the computer science program, and now I work on robotics and general AI. So I try to build robots and that can learn to do sort of complex tasks, by watching videos, or they have causal understandings of their world. Next slide, please. So I think both Priyanka and Jitendra have covered some of the specifics that you should look at when it comes to pursuing your master's and looking at higher education. I thought that it might be a good thing to sort of give you some general advice, which was not sort of technically specific. And so the first thing I would like to sort of point out is kind of appreciate your privilege. So what I mean when I say that is that, today we heard about people from pretty challenging backgrounds, from Professor Gandhi, who spoke about, these kids who probably weren't even motivated enough to look at grad school as an option. But, fortunately for you, if you're here today or are interested in looking at higher education, it's likely that you are, in a better position, in a position of privilege. And so it's important to kind of appreciate that. And that'll obviously help you stay humble, but it'll also, you can use that to sort of propel you forward. So, in my case, it was, before I knew Mr. Kolkar as Dina, I knew him as Dina uncle, because I went to school with his son, right? And so I had sort of unfettered access to to him all through school, and at the time I didn't appreciate it, but as I went to college, I realized, hey, here's this business leader, this tech leader, sort of a global leader, and I can speak to him, and that was pretty nice. Or, in other cases where I spoke to my dad and I was like, hey, I want to intern, and could you help me out? And so he used some of his connections or his contacts to say, okay, my son would like to intern. And so, the privilege that you come from should be used for you to, it'll help you stay humble if you appreciate that you have it, and it'll also help you, move forward using that. I think the next thing that I want to bring up is sort of try to be as curious as possible, and definitely don't follow the crowd. So, when I was in college, there were these sort of waves of people saying, hey, this club is great and you should join it, and there'd be like these long lines, and everyone would try their best to get in. But I found that sometimes if you follow the hype, it's likely that by the time you hear about things that percolate down to your level, it's already solved as a technical problem, or people have already addressed it. And so try and find your own things that interest you, and don't necessarily follow what everyone is saying. Have your own sort of backbone about it. The other thing, and I think these two things are quite important. The next 2 points, I think, one is that things will obviously fail. I think, and that's really important to expect it, be prepared for it, and to learn from it. So, in my case, this sort of manifested itself in terms of physical and mental health, right? And I think that's an extremely important point when it comes to getting work done. So if you're not healthy physically and mentally, it's likely that you won't be able to do any work at all. So I had a big an accident happen, which kind of spiraled down into, poor physical health and poor mental health, during my during my final year in college, basically. And so these things, and looking back now, it's easy for me to say, yeah, indeed, take care of yourself, physically and mentally. But I think those are things that you should try and do as you are, as an everyday sort of discipline that you should have. Um, the other thing I think is that the final 2 points. I think the first of them is that you should learn to explain your work well. So, effective communication, whether that is, to a technical audience, to a general audience, whatever it is, if you cannot explain whatever you've done, it's as good as not having done it at all in the first place. So my general advice is just try your best to be as effective in, when you're explaining things, when you're writing things down. All of these things are very important. And the last thing I think is sort of looking at things. I think Professor Gandhi also mentioned today, looking at things without like an instant need for gratification, and sort of putting in the work over a longer period of time without expecting that, hey, I've worked hard for a week, where is my reward for this? Rather than that, look at sort of the big picture in terms of, hey, I want to solve this problem, and I will be gratified when I'm closer to it, maybe, and that might take a year or 2 years, or it might take 10 years. So the timelines will likely increase, the harder and more sort of important the problems that you want to solve are. But I think you should try your best to work without a need for instant reward or gratification. But yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sumit. Thank you, Jitendra, and thank you, Priyanka, for a good amount of insights into your journeys. We'll come back to you in a couple of minutes. I just wanted to give a update to all our student members who have joined us. Do evangelize about the IEEE membership. You get a lot of benefits out of the membership, the value that you are able to get connecting with quite a few of your peers, also people from the industry, the areas that all of the students talked about, their ability to do internships, connect with the right people, get the guidance. I think that is a biggest benefit that you could get. I just wanted to call out some of the things that I have been doing over the last couple of years in helping develop membership in the Pune section. Also looking at, when we look at the student base, we realize that, it's not about a membership which is one size fits all. We found out that different students at different stages in their journey require a different type of guidance. So we've created a classification for first year students, then the second and third year students, where there would be a lot more active volunteering, then the final year students and graduate students, on postgraduate and PhD students, which are in the section, as well as we are seeing a lot of demand coming in from students of non-engineering background, because the need for digital as well as AI skills are very much integral in any of the curriculums, as well as in recent times, we've been getting a lot of interest from MBA students, because many of them do come with an engineering background and want to continue to leverage the IEEE ecosystem. So all in all, I feel that the steps that we have taken towards this we would encourage you guys to look at taking up membership. The good news is that this year and probably for the next 2 years, you will have the benefit of having a discounted membership, for annual membership, which will be there. We will definitely come back and roll out a very focused program to get more membership. So those of you who are on this call today, we would love to have you play a role in encouraging many of your other friends who don't have the membership currently. At Pune section level, as I talked about various activities, many of these activities that are there, there is a good amount of participation from various of the students, and they are gaining a lot of exposure. They are getting a lot of understanding of what's really happening in industry, new areas which are developing, and helping them shape up their thought process in various areas. And I'm sure that would translate into some of their aspirations, either from a higher education or whatever they want to do, either from setting up startups or various other things that they would like to do. Let me now, go into the last session, which is responding to queries. I know there are a lot of queries which have come up on the, my LinkedIn post as well as on the YouTube channel, and I have with me Nupur, who will be anchoring this for us. So Nupur, over to you to start off with your questions, because this is your event and you represent all the students in Pune section. So take it up from here.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, sir. Uh, Good evening to all the guests and attendees. I am Nupur Kulkarni, section student representative of IEEE Pune section. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. And sessions like these truly bring us closer to our dreams. Having said that, let us move towards the most awaited Q&A session. We have received many interesting questions from the attendees and the students. So we will try to take up maximum questions. Let's take up the first question. I am a 2020 graduate and working in Accenture. What are the prerequisites before getting into MS, and how to approach for some research as a base for MS? This is the first question. So any one of you would like to take it up?
I'm sure I can. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Priyanka.
sure. I think Sumedh, you can go on. Yeah.
Okay, no worries. So I think I can try and answer some of the research questions. I think it makes sense. I think this is good advice that I got from Mr. Kholkar when I asked him about it. So I think it's good to look at like grassroots level problems in terms of like, hey, like for example, I think we heard about making agriculture less of a pain for farmers by using some sort of technology. So that's a grassroots level problem that is important and you should look at, or other things that could help with help make people's lives easier. And so these are good research problems that are that I guess people have been looking at for many years, and so it's useful to look at some of this stuff. And it's pretty accessible too, right? Like if you're working in data driven things, and there are data sets available for healthcare technologies and so on and so forth. So that's how I would look at
Maybe
it.
Priyanka should also add on, because this particular question comes from a person who is already working, and you went through that journey where you spent time at a big engineering giant, Schneider Electric. So if you can address that, Priyanka.
Yeah, sure, Dina. Yeah, so I think for prerequisites, so the question was for what are the prerequisites, right, Nupur? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So the prerequisites as such differ from the program to the university which you're trying to apply for. But I think your work experience would definitely be beneficial, not just in terms of maybe getting a job later on in the US, but even for getting admission to a master's program. People do prefer, the admissions committee does prefer people who have had prior work experience. So that's really good. That you now and
Priyanka, you are breaking up for some reason. Nupur,
Yes, sir.
Priyanka, can you just hold on? Your line is breaking. Why don't you go to the next question, Napur?
Okay, okay. So thank you, Sumit sir and Priyanka ma'am for answering this question. The next question we have is from Manvi Singh, and she says, how to decide the specialization and start with the research paper publishing? Would anyone
Rajiv,
like
you'd
to?
like to take that question? Rajiv, you're on mute.
Sure, I can. Sure, I can take that. So again, specialization generally is more important for PhD. Okay, so in masters, generally specialization at many places doesn't happen. You can always come here and specialize later. Second thing is research paper publishing. Publishing comes much later, right? First, you have to identify an area and work on research in that area. And even before that comes strong background. So again, I don't know the background of the person asking the question, but as I said, there are some foundational topics that need to be done very well, which I put in my slides. I think those needs to be done well. Once they are done well, you can find a mentor to do research with. And once the research goes well, publishing can happen. I mean, this whole thing can take several months, sometimes even more than a year, and so on, right? And so so I would say focus on the foundational topics, do them well, and then you can think about research. And regarding coming here, you can always find a faculty whom you want to work with and then specialize in that. You don't need to decide beforehand, especially if you want to do a master's.
Thank you so much, sir, for the valuable guidance. The next question we have is from Sai Mure. How to get connected with mentor for research interested students?
Take that. I think for me, when it
Sumit,
yeah, I got it. Yeah. So I think it makes sense when you're looking to get an internship with a professor to just to be as concise as you can be when you're asking to work with them. So so if you're interested in working with them, it's likely that you've read some of their papers. So make the subject line just hey, I want to work on research on XYZ topic that sort of is appealing to you. And once you do that, write a very, very concise email, because most professors get thousands of emails like this. And if it's too long or if it's too verbose, no one's going to waste their time reading it. So be very concise, talk about the things that they care about and that you also care about in a subject line, and in a few sentences mention what you've done so far and what you hope to do in the future, and be as concise as you can be. I think there's a lot of also internship opportunities available for like undergraduate students, like research, like REUs, research experiences for undergraduates, which already have like a sort of a program in place that has funding for you and is really well structured. And so you might as well try and apply to those. Of course, it's harder because a lot of people will apply to those, but those are also good places to look at.
Yeah, I think the other thing which I would like to add over here is that when you are part of a forum like IEEE, and where there are various opportunities to present papers at conferences, you definitely get to meet a good amount of people who are into specific areas of research. So I think that is another area which I think I would strongly recommend to the students to also look at. Rajiv, you would like to add anything on this?
Yeah, I want to just echo what Sumit said. I think he said it quite well. That is, be precise. I get many emails. To be honest, I don't go. Most of the times I see the title and I many times just delete it, because just the number of emails that people send, and also their form emails. So many times when I get an email, I would just then run into my colleague in the hallway and we talk, and the same email was sent to my colleague at, so all the faculty in my department. So it doesn't work that way. But as Sumit said, be concise, talk to the faculty's research. Look, anybody likes to would like to know that, oh, somebody has read their paper, and actually saying meaningful things, and be concise. Nobody wants to read a long verbose email and so on. So I think Sumit I think addressed it quite well.
Sure. Yeah, Nupur.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. I hope that Sai, your query was resolved. The next question we have is from Akshada. She says, "Hi, I am currently studying in third year. I am planning for taking masters in AI ML, but while considering USA as an option, I have come to know that there are some H1B visa issues. So, what is the chance that a person is likely to get H1B visa? And the other options are Germany and Ireland or UK. Can you suggest which country would be better?"
Jitendra, Priyanka, you guys have both got a job in the US, so you probably are more better qualified after doing your masters.
I think I can speak for the US. Um, Basically, what companies do is they apply for H-1B once a year in March, and it's a draw system. So my H-1B wasn't picked this time. So it pretty much depends on luck. So you get three chances for H-1B. So basically, you will have 2 years of OPT, sorry, 1 year of OPT and 2 years of OPT extension. So companies can apply three times for your H-1B. So if that does not work out, then they kind of send you to either Canada and then they apply for a PR. So there are ways to get around it, but it kind of works out in the end, I believe. So yes, US will work out from the job perspective if you kind of apply to decent companies and get into decent companies.
Thank you, sir. I hope, Akshada, that your query was resolved. Let's move on to the next question. So we have the next question from Samiksha. What type of challenges does a student from India face when they go for masters in the US, and what can be done about them?
Can answer that if yeah, okay. So the one thing that we notice uh, at at many of the schools I work with is people come with very poor background, people especially in the master's programs, and I think it is crucial if you want to do well and if you want to make most of the resources. See, look, most people come here for masters, get their masters, get jobs. It's not a big deal. But if you want to do well your masters, the more time you spend on on making your foundation strong, the more you'll be able to make out of the opportunities that are provided. So some of the topics that I've listed and many others, I mean, if you can, the more you can do while you're in India, I think that will help you more. I mean, when you come here. And I think Jitendra touched upon some of the things that he did. And, Sumed, of course, did a lot too, and so on. So I think just strengthening your foundations before you come here.
Thank you so
Sumedh,
much,
anything you would
Rajiv,
like to
sir,
add?
for those insightful words.
I think I was the connection wasn't great. I missed the question. If you could please repeat, that'd be great.
Yes, sir. I just repeated.
Yeah.
So the question was that what type of challenges does a student from India face when they go for masters in the US, and what can be done about them?
Okay. I think it's just that in addition to what Professor Gandhi just said about lacking foundations, I think there's also the fact that most people in the US, from what I've seen, like the undergrads that I have TA'd or who are working with me as as students in my research, they typically they're doing it because they're really really interested in it. So I think it's very important, and they're happy to explore this sort of hey, what does interest me early on, maybe when they're seniors in high school, during undergrad, whereas to a large extent, at least the way it was for me, luckily I was able to explore, but most of my friends or colleagues that I know were just sort of forced into things because this was the only sort of option that they had. And so I feel like the challenges that here are that people that are here trying to do research or trying to do a master's are doing it because they're genuinely interested in it. And so I think this can be a bit of a challenge because some people are just far more motivated than you are if you're not really doing it because you're interested in it, but because society told you to to do this or whatever it is. So I think going back to what I said, I think sort of exploring also is important. So exploring what interests you is important to kind of figure out, hey, I want to do this. I don't want to do this. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
So Nupur,
Thank
we'll
you so
take a
much.
last question. We are just over time, so we'll take the last question and then we'll conclude.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. So the last question we have is from Meghna. She wants to know about the importance of SOP and LOR while applying to universities abroad.
I will just say that for masters, the number of applicants at top places has gone through the roof. We get more than 1,500 applicants at some of the top schools, and most times SOPs are not read, to put it bluntly, just because nobody has time to read a couple of pages of this and so on. But regardless, you should do your best to write your SOP. And my strong suggestion is the SOP should come from your heart. Almost every Indian's SOP starts with saying, when I was at the age of 6, my dad got me a computer and I got very excited about the field and so on. So the thing is, try to stay away from those things. Just say exactly why you want to do, why you want to do what you want to do, and try to keep it again somewhat short. It doesn't have to be 2 pages. In India many times we say, oh, my friend has 2 pages SOP, I have only 1 page, I'll be at a disadvantage. No, that's not the case. So do your best, but just keep in mind that the numbers are very high, the number of people who admit and number of people who apply and the number of people who get admitted, and the committee who looks at master's applications is generally not very big. So that should give you a sense of how you may want to write your SOP and how much importance you may want to give that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you,
I hope
Professor
the
Rajiv,
queries
and thank you, Nupur. Thank you, Nupur, for running the Q&A. I think we've just run over time, so I will like to thank all of them for participating in this, and I'll hand it over to you, Nupur, to give the vote of thanks.
Yes. So,
Go ahead,
thank
Nupur.
you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for resolving the queries of the attendees. I know we have missed out on a few questions, but because of time constraints, we won't be able to resolve all of them now. Probably we can forward all your queries to the guests and they can resolve them. So as we are nearing the end of this enlightening session, I would like to extend my vote of thanks. We are very glad to have with us our today's guests, Dr. Rajiv Gandhi, sir, Ms. Priyanka Dabadgi, ma'am, Mr. Jitendra Gandhi, sir, and Mr. Sumit Sontakke, sir. I am very grateful to you for sparing your valuable time and walking us through your wonderful journey and experiences. I would like to thank Deena, sir, Chair, Membership Development and Industry Relations, for initiating this activity, making it happen, and being so supportive throughout. I am also thankful to Charu ma'am, who has been coordinating amazingly well for this event, and I am extremely grateful to the Exicom team for extending their valuable support for this initiative. I would like to appreciate the efforts of our student team who has been working hard to make this event a successful one. Last but not the least, I would definitely like to thank our attendees for being involved and engaged throughout this session. Your feedback is very important to us and we'll definitely take it into consideration while conducting sessions in future. So I would request you all to fill the feedback form before leaving. You'll find the link in the chat box. Thank you one and all for your valuable time. Stay safe and take care. Thank you.
Thank you all.
So much.